Maylord her bride gave her first time to infertile rancher. What happened next shocked the entire. Emily had always dreamed of a life far different from the small town she grew up in. The streets were quiet, the houses old and worn, and opportunities for young women like her were almost non-existent. She spent her days helping her mother with chores, caring for her younger siblings, and doing odd jobs whenever she could. Emily was intelligent, kind-hearted, and determined, but she often felt trapped. Every day felt the same, as though life had painted a gray picture she could not escape from. She watched other girls leave town, chasing dreams in cities far away, and Emily longed for the same. But unlike them, she had no family fortune, no influential connections, and little chance of attending college. She wanted more than survival. She wanted a life filled with love, purpose, and the feeling that she truly belonged somewhere. She yearned to meet someone who could understand her, someone with whom she could share her hopes, fears, and dreams. One chilly evening, as Emily sat by the window, watching the sun dip below the horizon and paint the sky in shades of orange and pink, she came across an advertisement in a magazine her friend had left behind. It was about mail-order brides, a service that connected women from other countries to men in distant places who were looking for love, companionship, and family. Emily hesitated. The idea seemed strange and risky. How could someone trust a stranger enough to build a life together, especially someone living hundreds or thousands of miles away? But as she read more, Emily realized that many women had found happiness this way. Some had started families, built strong partnerships, and discovered a life they could have never imagined in their own towns. The thought sparked something inside her, a mixture of curiosity, hope, and determination. She began to consider the possibilities. Perhaps this was her chance, her opportunity to step out of the small, confining world she had always known. Emily spent hours writing her profile, carefully choosing words that reflected her personality. She described her love for simple things, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, quiet walks along dusty roads, and evenings spent reading by the fireplace. She emphasized her values, honesty, kindness, and loyalty. Emily was cautious. She knew she could not rush into anything. She also made it clear that she wanted a relationship built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. Meanwhile, far away on a sprawling ranch, Daniel was leading a very different life. The ranch was vast, stretching across acres of rolling land, with cattle grazing under the open sky. Daniel had always loved the land he grew up on. The smell of hay, the sound of horses' hooves on dirt, and the quiet of early mornings gave him comfort. But life had not been kind in other ways. He had been told by doctors that he was infertile. The news had crushed him years ago, leaving him feeling broken and unworthy of love. Relationships had come and gone, but none had lasted. Many women could not accept his condition, and Daniel, tired of disappointment, had slowly withdrawn into solitude. Despite the isolation, Daniel held onto hope in small ways. He still believed in love, even if it seemed impossible for him to experience in the conventional sense. When he heard about mail-order brides, he was skeptical but intrigued. Could someone truly care for him without judgment? Could he open his heart again after so much pain? It took courage, but he decided to write, carefully selecting letters that revealed his life, his dreams, and his struggles. He admitted his infertility, not as a barrier, but as a truth of his life. He hoped that honesty would attract someone who could love him for who he was, not just for the potential of starting a family. Weeks passed as Emily and Daniel exchanged letters. Each letter brought them closer, their words weaving a tapestry of shared experiences, laughter, and hope. Emily loved Daniel's sense of humor, the way he described life on the ranch, the pride he took in his work, and the gentleness beneath his rugged exterior. Daniel admired Emily's resilience, her optimism despite challenges, and her intelligence. Slowly, distance seemed to shrink. Though miles apart, they felt a connection growing stronger with every line written. As they continued writing, they shared more personal details. Emily spoke of her small town, the people she cared about, and the dreams she secretly held. She confessed her fears of leaving everything she knew behind and stepping into the unknown. Daniel shared the stories of his childhood on the ranch, the long days of labor, the satisfaction of hard work, and the loneliness that had shadowed him for so long. These letters became their sanctuary, a place where they could be honest, vulnerable, and understood. Emily faced nights of doubt. Could a relationship started through letters truly lead to love? Was she brave enough to leave her family and her life behind for a man she had never met? But each time she read Daniel's words, her courage grew. His sincerity, patience, and warmth made her heart believe that something real could happen. She realized that life rarely offered second chances, and perhaps this was hers. Daniel, too, wrestled with doubts. Could Emily accept him fully, with all his imperfections and the shadow of infertility hanging over their future? Yet, he felt a spark of hope he had not experienced in years. Emily's letters were different from any woman he had known. She saw him, not just his ranch, not just his solitude, but the man he was beneath it all. Her words made him want to believe in love again, to imagine a life where he could be happy, even with his past pain. Finally, after months of writing and getting to know each other, Emily made the decision. She would travel to meet Daniel. The thought was terrifying and thrilling all at once. She packed her bags, hugged her family goodbye, and boarded a bus that would take her on a journey she could never have imagined. She carried hope in her heart, the letters they had exchanged tucked safely in her bag like a talisman. Daniel prepared nervously for her arrival. He cleaned the ranch, worried about every detail, yet unsure how to prepare for a meeting that might change his life forever. Would Emily feel the same in person? Could the connection they shared through words survive the reality of being face to face? He did not know, but he hoped with every fiber of his being. When Emily arrived, the first moment was quiet and tense. Both were shy, unsure of how to bridge the gap between letters and reality. But slowly they began to talk, sharing laughter, stories, and small moments of connection. Emily was charmed by the ranch, the wide open spaces, and the simple beauty of Daniel's world. Daniel was captivated by her warmth, her intelligence, and the spark of curiosity in her eyes. Days passed, and the awkwardness melted away. They worked together on ranch chores, cooked meals side by side, and took long walks under the vast sky. They shared moments of silence that felt comfortable rather than empty, and slowly, their bond grew stronger. Emily realized that this was the adventure she had been searching for, and Daniel began to feel emotions he had not felt in years: trust, hope, and the possibility of love. By the end of the first week, Emily and Daniel had shared their first meaningful moments of intimacy. It was gentle, careful, and full of emotion. It was not just physical, it was a promise of connection, trust, and vulnerability. In that moment, both realized that their letters had been more than words on paper. They had been the foundation of something real, something neither of them had dared to imagine. Emily's first part of this journey ended with a quiet sense of hope. She had left behind the life she knew and stepped into something unknown, yet promising. Daniel's heart, once heavy with solitude, felt lighter, buoyed by the warmth and sincerity of Emily's presence. Neither could predict the challenges ahead, but for the first time, both believed that love was not only possible but within reach. And so, the story of Emily and Daniel began, not as a fairy tale but as a real-life journey of courage, hope, and the daring to believe in love despite all odds. Emily had been on the ranch for a few days now, and each day brought a new discovery, a new challenge, and a new reason to feel closer to Daniel. Life on the ranch was unlike anything she had ever experienced. The mornings were crisp, with dew covering the grass and the smell of fresh earth filling the air. She helped feed the animals, mend fences, and carry water, tasks that seemed ordinary to Daniel but were entirely new to her. Emily found a quiet satisfaction in the work, even though it left her tired at the end of each day. Daniel watched her with admiration. She approached every task with patience and determination, even when it was difficult. Emily stumbled a few times while trying to saddle the horses, and once she dropped a bucket of feed, spilling it across the ground. But instead of laughing at her mistakes, Daniel offered gentle guidance, explaining the best way to handle each chore. Emily appreciated his patience and kindness. She realized that he had a gentle strength, a kind of quiet confidence that did not need to show off. It was comforting to be near someone so steady and dependable. As the days passed, they spent more time talking. They sat together after long hours of work, drinking tea on the porch while the sun dipped behind the hills. Emily learned about Daniel's past, about the years he had spent struggling with the idea that he could never have children. She could see the sadness in his eyes as he spoke about failed relationships and broken dreams. It made her heart ache for him, but it also made her admire his resilience. Despite everything, he had not given up hope. Daniel, in turn, learned about Emily's life. She told him stories about her small town, about her family and the responsibilities she had taken on since she was young. She spoke of her dreams, her longing for adventure, and the fear that had held her back for so long. Daniel listened carefully, never interrupting, and often asked thoughtful questions. Emily noticed that he remembered every detail she shared, and it made her feel seen and valued. For the first time in her life, she felt that someone truly understood her. One evening, as the sky turned a deep shade of purple, Emily suggested they go for a walk to the edge of the property. The ranch stretched far into the distance, with rolling hills and fields that seemed to go on forever. Daniel agreed, and they walked side by side, the silence between them comfortable and easy. They watched as the sun disappeared behind the hills, painting the sky with streaks of pink, orange, and gold. Emily felt a strange mixture of peace and excitement. She had left her old life behind, and although the future was uncertain, she felt that something wonderful was beginning. It was during this walk that they began to talk about love, not the letters, not the polite conversation, but the feelings that had been growing between them. Daniel admitted that he had been afraid of letting anyone get close, especially because of his infertility. He confessed that he had almost given up hope that he could ever share his life fully with someone. Emily listened, her hand brushing lightly against his as they walked. She told him that she did not care about his infertility. What mattered to her was the man he was, the kindness in his heart, the strength in his hands, and the honesty in his words. That night, under a blanket of stars, they shared their first intimate moments. It was tender, slow, and full of emotion. Neither had rushed, nor had they tried to force anything. Every touch, every glance, every whispered word was a connection that went beyond physical closeness. It was a promise of trust, a sign that they were willing to take a step forward together. Emily felt safe, valued, and cherished in a way she had never experienced before. Daniel, too, felt a warmth and relief he had long thought impossible. In that quiet moment, the distance of letters, miles, and past fears faded away, leaving only the bond they had built together. After that night, their relationship continued to deepen. They laughed more easily, shared dreams more openly, and even debated small disagreements without anger or frustration. Emily discovered that Daniel had a playful side. He could be mischievous when he wanted to, teasing her about small mistakes and making her laugh until her cheeks hurt. Daniel found that Emily's curiosity and intelligence challenged him in the best way. She asked questions, offered ideas, and sometimes surprised him with insights that made him see things differently. Their partnership was growing into something strong, built not only on attraction but on mutual respect and understanding. Life on the ranch also taught Emily lessons she could never have learned in her small town. She learned to ride horses across open fields, to mend fences, and to care for the animals with patience and precision. Some days were exhausting and her muscles ached, but she discovered a new kind of strength within herself. Daniel noticed these changes too, praising her dedication and resilience. He began to imagine a future where Emily was not only his companion but his equal partner in every aspect of life on the ranch. Yet, despite the happiness, Emily could not ignore moments of doubt. She worried about leaving her family behind, about the challenges of building a life in a place so different from the one she had known. She feared making a mistake, choosing a path that might lead to heartbreak. Daniel, too, had moments of anxiety. He wondered if Emily's feelings were as deep as his, if she would remain patient and loving despite the difficulties they would inevitably face. But each time they reassured each other with small gestures, a smile, a touch, a shared meal, they strengthened their trust and resolved to face challenges together. One particularly stormy afternoon, as rain pounded against the roof of the farmhouse, Emily and Daniel found themselves huddled together by the fireplace. The wind howled outside, and the thunder made the walls tremble, but inside they felt safe in each other's presence. They talked about their hopes for the future, imagining a home filled with laughter, a garden blooming with flowers, and perhaps even the pitter-patter of children's feet. Although Daniel's infertility had been a concern, the dream of building a family together gave him courage. Emily's unwavering faith in him filled him with a sense of possibility he had not felt in years. Their evenings often ended the same way, with quiet reflection and shared warmth. Emily would read aloud from a book she brought with her, and Daniel would listen, occasionally commenting or laughing at a humorous passage. These simple moments, ordinary to some, were extraordinary for them. They were creating memories, building trust, and learning to rely on each other not just for love but for companionship and support. As weeks turned into a month, Emily began to feel a sense of belonging she had never known. The ranch no longer seemed intimidating or foreign. She felt connected to the land, to the animals, and most importantly, to Daniel. She realized that she had not just traveled to a new place, she had traveled into a new life, one filled with love, purpose, and hope. Daniel, too, felt the shift. He no longer feared his past or his infertility. Instead, he focused on the joy he found in Emily's laughter, the comfort of her presence, and the growing bond that made every day brighter. By the end of that first month, their relationship had evolved into something undeniable. Emily had not only adjusted to life on the ranch, but she had embraced it, finding strength in the work and joy in the simple pleasures. Daniel had opened his heart fully, allowing himself to hope again, to dream of a future he had almost given up on. Their connection was no longer just emotional, it was a partnership, a union built on respect, trust, and growing love. In those quiet, shared moments, Emily and Daniel began to understand the true meaning of companionship. It was not about perfection or avoiding mistakes. It was about patience, understanding, and choosing to be there for one another despite doubts and fears. They had discovered that love was not only about passion or attraction, it was about trust, shared experiences, and the courage to step into the unknown together. And so, their journey continued. Emily was no longer just a visitor on the ranch. She was becoming a part of Daniel's world, a partner in every sense of the word. Daniel was no longer a man defined by his past or his fears. He was a man capable of love, hope, and new beginnings. Together, they faced each day with determination, humor, and a deepening connection that neither of them could have imagined when they first exchanged letters so many weeks ago. Their story was no longer just about two people meeting. It was about two hearts learning to trust again, discovering joy in unexpected places, and taking the first steps toward a life that promised love, hope, and perhaps even miracles yet to come. Life on the ranch had settled into a rhythm, but not without its challenges. Emily had grown accustomed to the long days, the chores, and the wide-open spaces, but she began to notice something subtle in Daniel, a quiet tension, a shadow in his eyes that he tried to hide. One evening, as they were repairing a section of the fence near the cattle pens, Emily decided to ask him about it. She had learned over the past weeks that honesty was the foundation of their relationship, and she wanted to understand him fully. "Daniel," she said gently, "I feel like there's something on your mind. You don't have to hide it from me." Daniel paused, hammer in hand, and looked at her. His gaze softened, but there was a heaviness in his expression. "It's nothing, Emily," he replied, trying to brush it off. "Just life, I guess." Emily shook her head, determined. "It's not nothing if it's affecting you. You've shared so much with me already. Please don't keep me out of it." He sighed, setting the hammer down. The evening sky was painted in shades of gold and orange, but Daniel's thoughts were elsewhere. "It's about my past," he admitted finally. "About my infertility. I've lived with the idea that I couldn't have children for years. I didn't know if it was possible to have a family, and I guess I'm scared. Scared that it might affect us in ways we can't control." Emily reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Daniel, I don't care about that. What matters is us. We're together now, and that's what counts. We'll face whatever comes together." Daniel's eyes glistened with a mix of relief and vulnerability. For the first time, he felt that he could share his deepest fears without judgment. Emily's words were not just comforting, they were a lifeline. He realized that he had never encountered someone who believed in him so completely, someone willing to stand by him despite the uncertainties of life. But the couple's growing closeness did not mean the challenges had disappeared. Emily occasionally wrestled with her own doubts. She loved the ranch, the animals, and Daniel, but the idea of leaving her family behind weighed heavily on her heart. She missed her parents, her siblings, and the familiar rhythm of her small town. Every time she called home, a wave of nostalgia swept over her, reminding her of everything she had left behind. She feared that she might someday feel torn between her past and her present, unsure of where she truly belonged. Meanwhile, Daniel struggled with the fear of failure. He worried that his infertility would somehow change Emily's feelings for him, even though she had promised it would not. He feared that she might regret her decision to come to the ranch, that life together might not turn out as they hoped. Sometimes, when he was alone, he questioned whether he deserved happiness at all. He had been hurt before, and though Emily was different, old insecurities lingered, whispering doubts in the quiet moments. Friends and family, too, began to voice their concerns. Emily's parents were supportive of her decision, but they worried about the distance, the lifestyle, and the uncertainties of a mail-order marriage. Daniel's friends admired the young woman who had come into his life, but they also wondered whether she fully understood the challenges of ranch life, the isolation, and the reality of building a future on land that demanded hard work and endurance. Both Emily and Daniel faced questions, advice, and opinions from people who cared about them, and while they valued guidance, it sometimes added to the pressure they already felt. One afternoon, as Emily worked in the garden planting new vegetables for the upcoming season, Daniel approached her with a thoughtful expression. He had been mulling over a conversation he wanted to have with her, one that required honesty and vulnerability. "Emily," he began, kneeling beside her as she dug small holes for the seedlings, "I've been thinking a lot about the future and about us. I need to be honest with you about something important." Emily paused, sensing the gravity in his tone. "You can tell me anything," she said softly. "I've never told anyone this, but there are moments when I wonder if I'm enough for you," Daniel admitted, his voice low but steady. "Infertility isn't just a medical condition, it's something that has shaped my life. And sometimes, even though I know you love me, I fear that it might affect us someday. I don't want to disappoint you, Emily. I don't want to fail you in any way." Emily reached out, brushing dirt from his hands. "Daniel, listen to me. You are more than enough. You've already given me more love, patience, and kindness than I could have ever hoped for. None of that changes because of what you were told about infertility. I came here because of you, for who you are, not what you can or cannot do. We'll face the future together, no matter what it brings." Daniel felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Emily's unwavering belief in him made him feel safe, secure, and deeply cherished. He realized that love was not about perfection. It was about acceptance, trust, and the willingness to walk together through uncertainty. Despite these reassurances, the couple faced practical challenges as well. Ranch life was unpredictable. Storms could damage fences, sick animals required immediate attention, and long hours often left them exhausted. Emily, though strong and determined, sometimes found the work overwhelming. There were days when her hands were blistered, her back ached, and her energy was nearly gone. Daniel noticed, and rather than taking over, he offered support, encouragement, and teamwork. They learned to divide tasks, help each other when needed, and celebrate small victories together. One particularly tough week, a sudden storm hit the ranch, flooding part of the fields and threatening the crops. Emily and Daniel worked tirelessly, side by side, to save what they could. Mud caked their boots, rain soaked their clothes, and the wind whipped around them, but neither complained. In the midst of struggle, they laughed, joked, and leaned on each other for strength. That week became a turning point in their relationship, a testament to their ability to face challenges together and emerge stronger. As the days went on, the emotional connection between Emily and Daniel deepened further. They began to talk about dreams they had once thought impossible. Emily imagined a home filled with love, laughter, and maybe even children, despite Daniel's fears. Daniel began to see a future where he could be happy, fulfilled, and proud, not just of the ranch, but of the life they were building together. They dreamed not just for themselves, but for each other, encouraging one another to grow, explore, and embrace life fully. Yet life had a way of testing even the strongest bonds. One afternoon, Emily received a letter from her family expressing concerns about her decision to stay on the ranch permanently. They missed her dearly and worried that she might be sacrificing too much for a life that was still uncertain. Reading their words, Emily felt a wave of guilt and doubt. She loved Daniel and the life they were building, but her heart ached for the family she had left behind. She struggled to reconcile her love for the past with her commitment to the present. Daniel noticed her distress immediately. He took her hand, led her outside, and spoke softly. "Emily, your family loves you and it's natural to miss them, but remember why you came here. You chose this life because it felt right, because you believed in us. Don't let fear or doubt take away what we're building together. We can find a way to honor both worlds, your past and our future." Emily felt comforted by his words, realizing that true partnership was not just about shared joy, but about mutual support in times of doubt. Daniel's wisdom and compassion reminded her that love was not blind. It was thoughtful, patient, and strong enough to endure life's uncertainties. As weeks turned into months, Emily and Daniel faced many small trials, each testing their commitment and trust. There were arguments over minor tasks, moments of exhaustion, and days when fear crept in. But through every challenge, they chose understanding over frustration, patience over anger, and love over fear. They learned that a relationship was not just about happiness. It was about resilience, compromise, and the courage to face life's unpredictability together. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace after a long day of work, Daniel turned to Emily with a thoughtful expression. "You've changed my life, Emily," he said quietly. "I used to feel like I couldn't have anything, love, family, happiness. But now I feel hope again. You've shown me that life can surprise us, that joy is possible even when we least expect it. I'm grateful every day that you came here, that you believed in me." Emily smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. "And you've changed mine," she replied. I came here seeking a new life, and I found something better than I imagined. I found love, courage, and a sense of belonging. Thank you for trusting me, for letting me into your world." In that quiet moment, as the fire crackled and the night deepened outside, they realized something important. Love was not just about passion or romance. It was about trust, shared dreams, and the courage to face life's uncertainties together. They had found strength in each other, hope in each other, and a bond that no fear or doubt could easily break. And so, their journey continued, moving forward with a deeper understanding of themselves, each other, and the life they were building. The challenges were far from over, but Emily and Daniel knew that as long as they faced them together, they could overcome anything. They had learned that love was not easy, but it was worth every trial, every fear, and every moment of doubt. Life on the ranch had settled into a comfortable rhythm for Emily and Daniel. They had grown closer than ever, their bond strengthened by shared experiences, challenges, and quiet moments together. Yet, even with all the love and trust between them, neither could predict the life-changing surprise that was about to come. It started with a subtle change. Emily noticed that she was feeling unusually tired, and often found herself needing to sit or rest in the middle of chores. At first, she thought it was just the long hours on the ranch catching up with her. The work was hard, and she was still adjusting to the physical demands of her new life. But over the next few days, other signs began to appear. She felt queasy in the mornings, her appetite shifted, and she noticed a strange, fluttering feeling that she couldn't explain. Emily hesitated to speak about it at first. She had heard the stories before, the false hopes, the disappointments, and the endless worries that sometimes came with such signs. She didn't want to get her hopes up, nor did she want to worry Daniel unnecessarily. But when she finally saw him watching her with concern one evening as they sat on the porch, she realized she couldn't keep it to herself any longer. "Daniel," she said softly, her voice carrying a mixture of excitement and nervousness, "I think something might be happening." Daniel's heart skipped a beat. He set aside the cup of tea he had been holding and looked at her, searching her eyes for answers. "What do you mean?" he asked cautiously, trying to hide both hope and fear. Emily took a deep breath. "I think I might be pregnant." For a long moment, Daniel was silent. The words hung in the air like a delicate, fragile promise. His mind raced, thinking about the doctor's words, his past fears, and the years he had spent believing he could never have children. And yet, as he looked at Emily, her eyes shining with hope, her hand resting on her stomach, he felt a surge of joy and disbelief unlike anything he had ever experienced. "Are you sure?" he asked softly, almost afraid to believe it. "I haven't been to the doctor yet," Emily admitted, "but everything feels different. I wanted to tell you first." Daniel took her hand in his, holding it tightly, as though afraid she might disappear if he let go. "Emily, I don't even know what to say." I thought we'd never." His voice faltered, choked by emotion. Emily smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. "We'll figure it out together," she said. "No matter what, we'll face this together." The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Emily and Daniel went to the nearest clinic, where tests confirmed what they had suspected. Emily was indeed pregnant. The news stunned them both, leaving them speechless for a moment before laughter and tears mingled in a wave of overwhelming emotion. Daniel could hardly believe it. After years of fear, heartbreak, and doubts, life had offered them a miracle. Word of the pregnancy spread slowly among friends and family, first through careful phone calls and letters, and then through visits to the ranch. Their loved ones were astonished but overjoyed. Emily's parents were initially worried about her adjusting to life on the ranch and the physical demands of pregnancy, but their concerns quickly gave way to pride and excitement. Daniel's friends, who had known him as a man resigned to solitude, celebrated the news, marveling at how life had surprised them all. Back on the ranch, Emily and Daniel began preparing for the arrival of their child. The excitement was accompanied by practical considerations. They cleaned and organized the farmhouse, creating a cozy nursery in a small room that had previously been used for storage. Daniel built shelves and painted the walls, often working late into the night, while Emily sewed tiny clothes, washed blankets, and arranged toys. Each task was done with care and love, transforming the house into a home ready for the new life they were about to welcome. Throughout the pregnancy, Emily faced the challenges of ranch life with resilience. She experienced morning sickness, fatigue, and moments of discomfort, yet she continued to help with lighter chores and share in Daniel's daily routines. Daniel supported her in every way possible, ensuring she rested when needed and took on heavier work to ease her burden. Their teamwork, already strong, deepened further. Every action, every gesture, reinforced the unspoken bond that had grown between them over months of trust, patience, and love. Emotionally, the pregnancy brought them even closer. Daniel often held Emily as they sat together in the evenings, talking about the future and imagining the life they would share with their child. They laughed over names, dreamed about teaching the baby to ride horses, and imagined small adventures on the ranch. The anticipation filled their days with joy and their nights with gentle whispers of hope and wonder. Yet, even with all the happiness, there were moments of fear. Daniel sometimes worried about Emily's health, the difficulties of childbirth, and the challenges of raising a child in a remote location. Emily, too, had her anxieties. Would she be able to handle motherhood, ranch life, and her responsibilities to Daniel all at once? But they faced these fears together, discussing them openly and finding reassurance in one another. Their love and trust became a foundation strong enough to carry them through the uncertainties ahead. One afternoon, as Emily rested under a tree after feeding the animals, Daniel sat beside her, holding her hand and gazing out across the fields. "I can't believe this is real," he said quietly. "I always thought this was impossible, and now it's happening." "You're carrying our child." Emily smiled, resting her head against his shoulder. "Life has a way of surprising us," she replied softly. "We never know what's coming, but we can choose to embrace it. I'm so glad it's with you." Daniel felt a rush of gratitude and love so deep it left him momentarily speechless. For years, he had believed that happiness and family were beyond his reach. But now, in the warmth of the afternoon sun, he held Emily and felt the life growing within her, and he understood that miracles sometimes came when least expected. As the months passed, Emily's belly grew, and so did their anticipation. They continued with ranch work, adapting routines to make life comfortable for Emily while still managing the farm. Their neighbors and local community, who had watched them from afar, were inspired by their story. People admired the couple's resilience, their love, and their ability to face challenges with courage and optimism. Some even began to seek advice, curious about how a mail-order marriage had blossomed into such a strong and loving partnership. Emily's pregnancy became a symbol of hope, not just for them, but for everyone around them. It was a reminder that life could be unpredictable, that challenges could be overcome, and that love and faith could lead to extraordinary outcomes. Daniel often reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The letters, the first meeting, the long days of work, the shared fears, and the tender nights of connection. Every step had led them here, to a moment of pure joy and wonder. By the time Emily entered the final months of her pregnancy, their life on the ranch was full of laughter, love, and gentle anticipation. Daniel was constantly attentive, helping Emily with tasks, offering comfort when she felt uneasy, and sharing dreams about the future. Emily, in turn, brought warmth and light into every corner of the home, her spirit undimmed by the physical demands of pregnancy. Together, they had created a life that was richer, fuller, and more meaningful than either had imagined when they first met. As the story of their lives unfolded, It became clear that the miracle they had received was more than the child growing inside Emily. It was the life they had built together, the love, trust, and partnership that had carried them through months of uncertainty, doubt, and challenges. The pregnancy was a symbol of their perseverance, a reward for courage, patience, and the willingness to believe in one another even when the world seemed uncertain. In quiet moments, Emily and Daniel would sit together, holding hands and imagining the day they would welcome their child into the world. They envisioned the small nursery, the tiny clothes, and the soft coos of a baby filling the ranch with life. They imagined teaching the child about the land, the animals, and the values that had guided their own lives: hard work, honesty, and love. And in those dreams, they found a joy so complete it made every hardship worthwhile. And so their lives moved forward with excitement, hope, and gratitude. Emily and Daniel had faced doubts, fears, and the unexpected challenges of life on the ranch, but they had done so together, guided by love and trust. The news of Emily's pregnancy had transformed their world, bringing with it a sense of wonder, possibility, and the knowledge that life could surprise them in the most beautiful ways. For Emily and Daniel, the future was no longer uncertain. It was full of promise. Each day brought new joy, new lessons, and new opportunities to grow as individuals and as a family. The miracle they had received was not only a child, but a renewed sense of faith in life, love, and the power of hope. And as the sun set over the ranch, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, they held each other close, ready to face whatever came next together. The months passed, and Emily's pregnancy reached its final stages. The ranch, once quiet and predictable, now buzzed with anticipation. Every corner of the house seemed to carry a sense of excitement. The small nursery prepared with care, the baby clothes neatly folded, and the tiny toys lined up as though waiting to welcome a new life. Daniel could hardly believe that the journey they had started with letters and tentative meetings had led them to this moment. Emily, too, felt a mixture of emotions. She was joyful and excited, but she also felt a touch of nervousness about the coming birth and the new responsibilities that parenthood would bring. Yet, every time she looked at Daniel, she felt a deep sense of reassurance. His calm presence, gentle support, and unwavering love gave her the courage to embrace the unknown. Together, they were ready to face the adventure of welcoming their child into the world. The days grew longer as the birth approached. Daniel remained attentive, constantly checking on Emily, helping with chores, and ensuring she rested when needed. He spoke often of the future, imagining the life they would share as a family. He pictured teaching their child to ride horses, showing them how to care for the animals, and walking them through the vast fields that stretched across the ranch. The ranch itself, which had once felt empty and lonely, now seemed alive with promise and the joy of what was to come. Emily spent her time preparing in other ways. She read books about pregnancy, took walks around the property to stay active, and spent quiet moments talking to her unborn child. She would place her hand on her belly, feeling the gentle movements and imagining the tiny fingers and toes, the soft coos and laughter that would soon fill the ranch. Each day brought a new wave of wonder and gratitude, as if life had given her more than she had ever dared to hope for. One evening, as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, Daniel and Emily sat on the porch together. Emily leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Can you believe how far we've come?" she asked softly. Daniel smiled, his arm around her. "I can hardly believe it," he admitted. "From letters and long-distance hopes to this, our life together, our child on the way, it feels like a dream, but it's real and it's ours." They spent the evening talking, laughing, and reflecting on the journey that had brought them here. They remembered the letters, their first meeting, the awkward yet charming moments as they adjusted to life on the ranch, and the doubts that had tested their trust and love. Every memory reminded them of the resilience, patience, and courage that had carried them through challenges. They realized that their love was not built on chance alone. It had been nurtured by effort, honesty, and unwavering commitment. When the day finally arrived, Emily went into labor in the early morning hours. Daniel stayed by her side, holding her hand, whispering words of encouragement and providing comfort as the contractions grew stronger. The process was intense, exhausting, and at times frightening, but neither of them wavered. They faced it together, just as they had faced every other challenge in their life on the ranch. Hours later, after immense effort and anticipation, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Emily and Daniel looked at each other, tears streaming down their faces as they held their child for the first time. The baby was healthy, small, and perfect in every way. In that moment, all the fears, doubts, and struggles of the past seemed to vanish, replaced by a profound sense of joy, love, and gratitude. Daniel marveled at the tiny life in his arms. He had dreamed of this moment for years, yet it felt more magical than he could have imagined. Emily watched them both, her heart swelling with emotion. She knew that this child was not only a blessing, but also a symbol of the love, patience, and courage that had defined their journey together. The ranch, once quiet and solitary, now echoed with the sounds of life and hope renewed. The days that followed were filled with learning, laughter, and tender moments. Emily and Daniel adapted to life as parents, sharing responsibilities, comforting the baby, and discovering the joys of nurturing a new life. They found delight in every small milestone, the first smile, the first coo, the tiny hands grasping theirs. Each moment was a reminder of the miracle they had been given and the strength of their bond. Family and friends visited, eager to meet the newest member of their lives. Emily's parents were overjoyed, and their initial concerns about life on the ranch were replaced with pride and admiration for the life their daughter had built. Daniel's friends celebrated the miracle with him, marveling at how love and hope had transformed his life. Every visitor saw what Emily and Daniel already knew. Their love had created something extraordinary, a life full of promise, joy, and togetherness. As weeks turned into months, Emily and Daniel found a new rhythm. Life on the ranch remained busy, but now it was filled with laughter, music, and the little footsteps of their child. They worked together, managed the farm, and still found moments to simply sit together, watch the sunset, and reflect on the journey that had brought them here. Their love, once tested by distance, doubts, and challenges, had grown stronger, deeper, and more resilient. The ranch itself seemed to thrive under their care. The animals were healthy, the crops flourished, and the home was filled with warmth and joy. Emily and Daniel discovered that life, when faced with courage, patience, and love, could transform even the most ordinary places into something extraordinary. Their child grew surrounded by beauty, care, and the values they both cherished: honesty, hard work, and compassion. One afternoon, as Emily rocked their baby in her arms, Daniel joined her on the porch. They watched the sun dip below the horizon, painting the sky with brilliant colors, and held hands. "I never imagined life could be like this," Daniel said quietly, his voice full of awe. "I thought happiness was impossible for me, but now I see that it was waiting all along in ways I could never have predicted." Emily smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "Life is full of surprises," she replied. "Sometimes we don't know what's coming, but we can choose to embrace it. I'm so grateful we found each other, Daniel, and I'm so grateful for this life we're building together." Daniel kissed her forehead gently. "Me too, Emily. Every day I'm grateful. For you, for our child, for the family we've become. We've been through so much, but it's made us stronger, closer, and more alive than ever." Their story, once filled with uncertainty and longing, had transformed into one of joy, hope, and fulfillment. The challenges they had faced, distance, doubts, fears, and unexpected obstacles, were now chapters in a larger story of resilience and love. Emily and Daniel had learned that life could be unpredictable, but with trust, patience, and commitment, even the most daunting obstacles could lead to happiness beyond imagination. As the days passed, the ranch continued to be a place of growth, learning, and connection. Emily and Daniel taught their child about the land, the animals, and the values that had guided their own lives. They shared stories of letters exchanged across miles, first meetings filled with nervous excitement, and the journey of trust and love that had brought them together. Through these stories, their child grew surrounded by a sense of wonder, hope, and the knowledge that love could overcome even the greatest challenges. The couple also found time for themselves, nurturing their relationship as partners and friends. They laughed, worked, and dreamed together, always supporting one another. Their life, though filled with responsibilities, was also rich in love, meaning, and shared joy. They understood that true happiness was not found in perfection or ease, but in the journey shared, the trials overcome, and the deep connection that sustained them through every moment. In the quiet evenings, as the stars appeared over the vast fields, Emily and Daniel often sat together, reflecting on how far they had come. They remembered the letters, the first meeting, the moments of doubt and fear, and the miracle of new life that had changed everything. Each memory was a reminder of their resilience, their courage, and the strength of the bond that had carried them through every challenge. Life on the ranch had become a tapestry of love, family, and fulfillment. Emily and Daniel had discovered that happiness was not about what was promised or expected. It was about embracing life fully, trusting in each other, and finding joy in the ordinary as well as the extraordinary. Their child, a symbol of hope and love, completed the family, bringing with it laughter, wonder, and the endless possibilities of the future. As the sun set over the horizon, casting golden light across the fields and the farmhouse, Emily and Daniel held each other close, their hearts full. They had faced uncertainty, taken risks, and embraced life with courage and hope. In return, life had given them the greatest gift imaginable: a family, a home, and a love that could endure anything. And so, the story of Emily and Daniel reached a chapter of fulfillment, not because life had been easy, but because they had chosen to face it together. With hearts full of gratitude, hope, and unwavering love, they stepped into each day ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that their bond, their family, and their dreams would carry them forward, forever.